There's been a lot of talk about the Yeti over at Expedition Everest. And should Disco Yeti stay? Should they change it back to the original? What's the real story going on here? Hey, if you like this video and want to hear more unpopular opinions from me, don't forget to hit that like button, share, and let me know in the comments what you'd love to hear me talk about. You have probably heard about Disco Yeti, the giant animatronic figure at Expedition Everest at Animal Kingdom. There's been a lot of talk about what it was originally, what it is now, and should they fix it or not. If you're not familiar with the Yeti figure for some reason, it is the largest animatronic figure that Disney has ever built. It is absolutely huge, and it is the conclusion, the climax of the Expedition Everest roller coaster at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Florida. It is over 25 feet tall and literally weighs tons. When it is working right, what they call A mode, its arm actually will sweep 5 feet across and about 18 inches up and down. It's a pretty big movement, a pretty dramatic movement. However, with the figure having issues, whether it's the foundation that's not supporting it or cracking, or the building foundation that's having issues, or the figure itself, instead of running it in A mode, where the figure itself actually moves and sweeps its arm out over you as you go by, they're running it in what's called B mode. B mode is where the animatronic figure doesn't actually move, but it's actually standing still. This is so that it's not generating forces, so the parts don't break, so whatever's going on wrong with it isn't going wrong. Instead of the figure moving as you fly by, what it actually does is stands in a position where it looks like it's reaching out for you, and then they have strobe lights on it to make it look like it's moving, when actually it's you moving past it with the strobe lights that gives the simulated effect of it reaching out and swiping for you. And the strobe light is why we call it Disco Yeti. So that is A mode versus B mode. When you actually see this figure, it's at the climax, you're moving pretty quickly past it. You actually only get to see the figure for about 2 to 3 seconds. It's a really quick flyby. So it's not a huge part of the ride. Yes, it's the climax, but it's not something you spend a lot of time in front of. And not something you could spend a lot of time studying what it's doing and what it's not doing. According to various theories about why it's not working, one of the most prominent ones is that in the course of its movement, because it's so heavy, because of the way it's anchored, is that it actually started to crack the foundation that it is mounted on, just because of the heavy movement that applied to this. It is inside of a large building, and for them to get to it, they have to open the building up and then pull it out. There are some that say that it's not that hard to pull the figure out. There's others that say you'd have to tear the whole thing down. Disney hasn't really commented, so they haven't said which is the case. So you can kind of pick and choose what you believe. Regardless of what is the truth, to fix this thing is going to take some work. It's going to take redoing the foundation that it's mounted on, possibly redoing some of the building or the building foundation, depending upon which theory you subscribe to. The ones who know, like Joe Rohde, haven't really said. Now, Joe Rohde has said in the past that he wanted to get the Yeti fixed. He wanted to get it moving again. And unfortunately, Joe is now retired as of a few days ago, and the Yeti is still in B mode, Disco Yeti. It's not moving anytime soon and doesn't look like it is in the plans. The real question becomes, is the original Yeti in A mode a huge difference between Disco Yeti in B mode? Does it really impact the ride? Is it actually worth fixing? Well, my kids and I were very blessed. We actually got invited to when they were doing some of the recording for the commercials, the media, the actual Disney Vacation DVDs. You can get a brief glimpse of my son in one of those, riding Expedition Everest before it opened to the public. They had started doing a few soft openings, but we were some of the very first riders. We got to see the Yeti in A mode, and over the course of the next year or so, we got to ride it several times in A mode. We got to see this thing moving. We know what it did. We also got to ride it a lot in B mode, seeing Disco Yeti. Seeing the two differences and the impact it had, I'd like to think that we can kind of form a semi-educated opinion on which is better. Again, you're only seeing this thing for about 2 to 3 seconds. In A mode, you don't have the strobe lights, but you do have some lights, and what you basically see is the Yeti kind of doing this. That's about it. It's just kind of an arm sweep and the body moves a little bit, and there's not a whole lot more else that it did other than that. Disco Yeti, it doesn't move, but the strobes move. And the whole point is that you are moving past it at such a rate of speed that you honestly don't get to see much. Here's the unpopular opinion. I don't think it makes a difference. I don't think them spending probably millions of dollars to fix it, to fix the foundation, to get it all working right, I don't think they're going to get a return on investment. And I don't think it really makes that much of a difference to the ride. Was it cool to see it operating originally? Yes. But what you see now, really, from a ride experience perspective, from a visual perspective, isn't all that much different. It really doesn't impact how the ride works or affects you at all. In fact, I would actually even say that Bird on a Stick probably has a little more visual impact because you see it a little bit more. And it was very cheesy. But overall, I really don't think that Disco Yeti is a real big step down. In fact, it's negligible as to whether it's a step down or not. Now, can Disney spend all the money and the time and investment to fix Yeti? Would it make a difference? Sure it would. But is it worth it? Probably not, because I don't think most people would even really know the difference. There is definitely a group of Disney fandom out there that is huge about getting the Yeti to work right again. I actually wonder how many of them have ever actually experienced the original Yeti and know how much of a difference it is, because it's really not that much. Having ridden it, I honestly, the impact of the original one, the overall ride was amazing our first few rides, and we absolutely love that. But the Yeti itself didn't necessarily stand out. In fact, the lit up Shadow Yeti figure that you see while you're paused before going down actually has more of a visual impact because you're staring at it longer. And that hasn't changed. That's the one that really reinforces the Yeti, and then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, whoa! In fact, to be totally honest with you, I think Harold on the Matterhorn, the Yeti there, probably has more of an impact than the Yeti at Expedition Everest does. As crazy as that is. Do I think Disco Yeti is a huge step down? No, I really don't. Leave Disco Yeti. He's fine. We'll party and dance with him when the lights go on. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think I'm just totally off my rocker? I would love to hear it. Share it in the comments below. In fact, if you've got other things that you wonder about my opinions, and is it the popular or unpopular one, ask me below too. I'd love to see your comments. Thank you so much for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Thank you to my financial supporters as well. Their financial support means the world to me, and they get a number of perks that comes along with that. If you want to know more about that, be sure to check the description as well. Thank you so incredibly much for watching, and God bless. Okay, I gotta move my notes because I had them where I couldn't read them. According to various theories, there's not a whole lot more. Ding. Thank you for my blah blah. Their help means the blah. Or whatever may be going wrong with it, David. It sounded like a giant fart from a truck. It's not quite the same as A mode where it does actually move, but in appearance it looks pretty similar. Why is my camera doing this? I don't know. My camera keeps dropping off. Ah! Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to know about contact information, fan pages, merchandise, and more, please be sure to check the description below. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to know when I have new ones, well, make sure you hit that subscribe button right up there. And if you want to see another one of my videos, well, I've got a great one for you right here. And a huge thank you to these wonderful people here who support me on Patreon and with YouTube memberships. They get behind the scenes information, special perks, and more. If you'd like to know more about that, well, make sure you check that button right there. Thank you so much.